Good. Cool.
Go.
Hey. So
Share
we're
your piece.
on.
We're on. Share your piece, and then I'll introduce you.
Cool. Okay. So common thread. In a lot of what I've been writing, I'm realizing is trying to reconcile and weed through things I hear, read, see, and make sense of them. And this one's about gratitude of some of the things that I picked up from people that have helped me out. Improv taught me to freak filters of the 950. Eclectic mixtape collection credited to cousin Richie. Shed a lot of what he said, but some of it is coming with me. As an adolescent, every year I'm in another city. Something similar to sisters, fathers, brothers, mothers to me seem to find a way into my life and feed my mind into me. Often people fade away, advice forever lingers. Grandma taught me how to measure rice using my finger, and the type of sacrifice that comes to mind when I see her. Achilles taught me lessons through his spirit and demeanor. Mr. Clemens was ahead and by far my favorite teacher. I taped the wake up shows and we would peep it on the speakers in his class during lunch. I'm a master of none, but a student of some. People that imparted concepts of hard work and honor. Rest in peace to Linda Young, forever grateful to her daughter for the knowledge that she taught me was offered at a college. My mommy was a model and my father was a goner, so instead of holding poses, she chose to hold my bottle, and she showed me how to hope through the darkness at the bottom. Shout out to Mike Sonskin, who brought me to the Sangha, where I chant the mantra. Pharrell Walker, my path partner, that taught me how to love myself and art wholehearted. Reach Hard, John Scott, Core Kia Roberts. No one is alone in and improving key components to the process of my growing. All the kids and infants in the early stage of growing show me the difference of living in and for a moment. Corey Colfer showed me that there's purpose in our poems. Plex taught me the style and the focus that I flow in. So in closing, I will moment to the folks in my life that, being knowingly bestowing, lessons that are golden. If you've got them, then hold them. I'm glad we were chosen, that our paths were interwoven. That's gratitude.
So you mentioned in this poem both Mike Sonskin and Corey Kofer. Mike is a well-known poet throughout Los Angeles. Corey Kofer is the founder of Micah Dim Lights in Pomona, also well-known throughout the country, both of them. Can you tell us a little bit about Micah Dim Lights?
Yeah. So a mic and dim lights is one of the most formative places, institutions that I was ever exposed to. Really, really grateful for it. I was like 15, I think, when I first went. It was at this place called Millennial Lounge in downtown Pomona. And yeah, it just blew my mind, and it became a regular, almost religious thing for me. Um, and recently I was thinking about, the alternatives and where a lot of my friends were spending their time, and it it definitely protected me in a lot of ways, even making it a sort of big part of my life. It shaped a lot of what I believe, how I think. Some of my political beliefs and ways I see the world were shaped by people like you, for example. Um, yeah, one of the most important spaces I think I've ever been in.
So can you expand a little bit about like how it shaped your thinking and how it shaped your mindset, and like what kind of messages did you hear that really like resonated with you that you've carried on into your own work?
Um, hmm. I think one thing is definitely just the importance of an outlet, the importance of a community where people can write about the things that they're experiencing, feeling, thinking, share them. It's very vulnerable, but it's also a very safe space to do that. Um, Also, what trickled from being in that space and then going home and being inspired to write, you know, I miss in a lot of ways that part of youth of this just self-contained contentment of just sitting with a notebook and writing. And dim lights made me feel that. I would be inspired by these really seasoned poets who spent lifetimes on their work, and that made me want to go home and do that. um, some of the ideas. Um, I think some of the most formative conversations I've had were at Dim Lights. There's a couple I had with you about what communism actually is and what it's not. And I think I had some misconceptions about things like planned economies and things like that. So there's one example. Discussions with people like Judah One, a really good friend, about how the creative energy within is a very spiritual thing. Seeing people, you know, treat art and value art as a part of their like spiritual path, and their spirituality was also big. Um, yeah, and it was just, I think that in few conversations you go into as much depth with people about what they're going through as you do when you hear their poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And so you learn a lot about the human condition, about people by listening to their poetry.
Yeah. You mentioned the thing about some of the conversations we had about economies and the market system versus a planned economy, but we see today in the midst of this health crisis that the market economy is essentially unable to provide some very basic necessities for people in dealing with this pandemic, and some people who are most at risk are people who are currently incarcerated. So you're here today to talk about a project about that. Can you tell us our audience a little bit about that
Yeah,
project?
yeah. So my good friend Leslie is out in Nevada, and she started an organization called Mass Liberation. It started as something local to help one end cash bail, but also bail people out of jail. And so they've accomplished that. And now the shift of the campaign of mass liberation is, focused on the current need, which is freeing people in a time of pandemic. A lot of the statistics about how many people are being infected in while they're incarcerated is really troubling. Um, I think it's really sick to force people in those situations and to not have the same protection that the rest of us have to to isolate themselves from that virus. So Mass Liberation, their website is masslibproject.org. You can check out the general mission statement there. There's also secure.actblue.com/donate /Vegas Freedom Fund. If you just Google Vegas Freedom Fund, you can donate to the cause there. There's also social media pages.
I'm sure Devin will reconnect in a moment. The system sometimes has little glitches, but we'll get Devin right back. Uh, Very, very important topic. Prisoners are obviously some people who are at most at risk at this current moment. It's, they promote very important, very important organization working to get people out of jail. Obviously, other times. Here he's back. You disconnected for a second.
Sorry. Okay.
So for our audience who might be unfamiliar with some of what you were talking about beforehand, I understand that right now the urgency is to get them out, but and we'll get to that. But earlier you mentioned ending cash bail. For those who are unfamiliar with cash bail, can you explain to our audience what cash bail?
Cash bail is, before you're convicted, before a person is found guilty of some crime, they're held in jail. And a lot of times there is a dollar amount that a judge will say, well, if you can pay this amount, then you can go home while you're awaiting trial. Um, Basically, what that does is it means that if you got money, you get out of jail. If you don't have money, you stay in jail, even though you haven't been convicted of anything.
And so they've been able to eliminate that in Las Vegas.
I believe so, or they've made some very serious strides towards it. I have just joined the communications and media team this past week. It's kind of like a, an urgent situation, so I just, got on board. But I believe that, yes, I believe that cash bail is no more in Nevada.
Okay, so now so that's very obviously very significant, very important thing. Um, outside this pandemic, that's pretty huge. But now that we are in this health pandemic, now that we are in a situation where, um, this is these prisons, which are horrible unto themselves, are now becoming potentially death camps. What is the organization doing?
The organization is one on the social media pages. One thing that we're going to start doing is sharing the stories of people who are incarcerated, um, giving them, trying to increase their platform so that they can share their stories, and so that they can let the world know what the conditions are actually like, and also actually raise funds and fundraise to bail people out of jail, or to provide services for them, when they do get out, help them with shelter, food, basic necessities, stuff like that.
Okay. And so, how did you get involved with this organization? What brought you to this work? Why are you so passionate
Um,
about this topic?
it's my good friend Leslie. She started the organization out in Nevada, and she's just always been a very. I just admire her work a lot, and I've just kind of admired it from afar. And when I saw her urgency on social media about the current situation, um, I just thought, like, you know what? I've got some time right now. I can enlist at least my abilities to, like, edit video, create content, do interviews. I study communications and focus on media for social justice, so I can kind of, use some of those skills. Um, but yeah, she's a really good friend. She was actually supposed to be in my wedding that's been postponed till we don't know when. Um, she's in my fiance's wedding party, and yeah, so I've admired her work for a long time. She's a really good friend, and she's actually the one that started the mass liberation movement, which started just in Nevada, but now there are hubs in a lot of places, a lot of different states.
So you mentioned working on like social media campaigns and these things. So what kind of skills are required to really be a kind of a social media um, I don't know, influencer? I don't know what the word would be for this.
I don't I haven't really had much experience being like an influencer and things like that. But I studied some interview techniques and documentary. I really love the medium of documentary. I think right now journalism is really important. So one skill that I'm enlisting is just, video editing. Taking content that they're able to create out in Nevada. They can send me video footage. I can edit the video. Also just doing interviews. Simple things like asking people to phrase the question back after, being asked the question. Um, there is an amount of, messaging and communication strategy with, like, what phrasing works. I mean, even we just went through an exercise as a communications team of what do we name the campaign, what hashtags are effective, so those types of things.
So what advice would you give to people who today are very concerned and passionate about the conditions that about some of these kind of emergency conditions, and they want to start a campaign, but they're not sure how. How would you what advice would you give?
you know One thing that I realized after getting on board with mass liberation is, I think a lot of times I have the idea that people who are doing this kind of work are more just experienced than me. In a lot of ways, they are. But one piece of advice is, don't discount just even your desire to contribute. If that desire exists, that alone can be channeled. I would also encourage people to look at the work that's being done out there, and maybe not always feel the pressure of needing to lead and spearhead an entire movement, but just like chop wood, carry water for a movement that already exists. Search out other movements that are doing the work that you believe in. Maybe help out with those. Um, yeah, those would be two things.
How did mass liberation get started?
So, as I understand it, it was our friend Leslie Turner. Um, she she started with a focus on a campaign called Free Black Mamas, and it was, I believe, the two-pronged approach: one, to actually bail out Black mothers from jail, and two, to actually reform or end cash bail. So it started just locally in Nevada, and I'm just now really getting a handle on and appreciating how fast the movement's grown. I think they have been around since 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So in 3 short years, they've now got hubs in places like DC, I believe Chicago.
So you so is there kind of a is there any like artistic component to the organization? Are there?
Yeah, when we're talking about messaging and promoting an idea and a campaign, um, one of my comrades in the communications team, she's an artist, and she made a sort of comic strip of telling someone's story who is trying to get free right now, and the conversations that she's having with family and lawyers and what that process is like. And so, you know art is definitely really vital in telling those people's stories. um, yeah, that's another piece of advice. If you are an artist, art is an amazing way of conveying really complex, serious things. So that is definitely needed.
So what do you think in this era right now? What is the responsibility of politically minded artists? I mean, and how should they be going about their carrying out their responsibility?
Hmm. You know, lately I've been really like not trying to tell other artists what they should or shouldn't do. It's like, it's your art, you got to do what you want to do. But I will say that something I have succumbed to personally, that I would encourage people not to, is to discount your own voice. For a while, it felt like there were so many thought pieces, so many blogs, so much content, so much art being made. What is there left to say? And your own personal experience isn't being told by anyone else. And it's valuable and it matters. And also, for as much information as out there, there's a ton of bad information. Uh, and so there's always the need for good information, and people get information from art. So don't discount your own experience. um, yeah.
So how about you in this experience? How are you experiencing as an artist and as someone working with obviously your wedding got put on hold. How about your artistic career? How has it been affected by the pandemic?
Well, it's sort of coincided with a lot of goals. Um, I work also with my mother-in-law and my fiance. We manage canvassing campaigns, petition campaigns, things like that. So for the last quarter of last year, we worked on the campaign to legalize cannabis in Florida, also to register voters. We worked on the campaign to legalize cannabis in Nevada. So all those people that you see in front of the grocery store getting signatures to get stuff on the ballot, We, hire those people. We've done that work personally. And so, anyways, I say that to say I spent a good part of 2019, the last part in Florida. And so when we got home, I was like, all right, I do that really so I can support, keep the lights on and work on art, you know? And so when I got home in like early January, I was already really into like, all right, so I'm taking a couple months here. I act. I'm getting back in acting class. I'm working on music. I already started to buy the last pieces of studio equipment I needed. I started to learn stop motion so I can make stop motion animation videos for my music. And then coronavirus and quarantine happened. So I was already kind of in like a flow. And yeah, it's been super instrumental in helping cope. You know, I'm usually like a homebody. Like I don't go out as much anymore. I'm in my 30s now, but I do miss people. I do miss friends. So having art in an outlet and a space to put anxiety into art is major right now.
Yeah. So you have multiple talents as both as a writer, performer. You're also a musician, and you're also a videographer or a filmmaker. So how do when you're writing, when you're working on one thing, are you already visualizing how it will play out and with these other multimedia components?
Yeah, yeah. So I think in one ways that has been almost a hindrance to completing things because I think I'm like a results oriented person in a lot of ways. Like I start doing something and I'll be 3 lines into a verse, and then I start thinking of, oh, the video can be like this, and it becomes overwhelming. But yeah, that's definitely how it works. A lot of the pieces I'm writing now, I'm thinking of ways I can create video content that complements them. Um, One skill set kind of leads to another. Like I studied communications and I really wanted to work on in documentary. And so when I started to edit video, I realized like this is really similar to editing audio and making beats. Um, you get clips and adjust the start and stop point and line them up and they make a thing. So, but yeah, that's definitely how it works. One thing makes me think of another and another.
How long have you been making beats? When did that start?
That started around the same time as I was going to a mic and dim lights. I was 15 or 16. Started on a couple beat machines that had like 12 seconds of sample time, and been doing it ever since. Spent a lot of years working like corporate jobs, places like Verizon. I was a loan officer for a long time when I was younger. I cleaned pools and all kinds of different jobs. And art and making beats and writing was always just something I did on the side, when I could fit it in.
So were you like a loan officer like around like the 2006, 7, 8 period where during the housing crisis when they were trying to get everyone and their mom to sell houses to each other?
Yeah, it was a little before that, and I worked for a bank, a lending office that actually did subprime mortgages, and it was crazy to see, like, and one hand it seemed like, oh, this is great, we're helping people buy houses, you know. On the other hand, it's like, man, you really can't afford this housing payment, and you're getting into this mortgage where in 3 years the rate's gonna go, adjustable. um, Wild experience. Took me some time to even deprogram from that culture of like this hard sales environment and stuff. Yeah, crazy time.
So I mean, obviously, I mean you're young, you probably didn't realize what's going on, but like has some of that though that aggressive kind of sink or swim kind of I don't know environment of sales. Has any of that really carried over to your artistic production? Like kind of like
It definitely has, and um, I think, like I said, like being a results oriented person, I've had to break from in a lot of ways and just enjoy the process. just enjoy creating for the sake of creating, and not always place a monetary value or even place a value on what I'm doing. Just doing it because I'm a human being. I'm a creative entity, and it going to completion and becoming a unit of product I can sell isn't isn't why I'm you know isn't why I'm doing things. At least not the whole reason. Yeah, I think that was a really unhealthy environment in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people who didn't have other options go into sales because it's a way of earning a living. Um, I think it's definitely a destructive environment, though, in a lot of ways.
You ever see Glenn Ross?
Oh wow, yeah. Boiler Room, Glengarry, Glenn Ross. Those in a sales environment are like, even in Boiler Room, in Boiler Room, they quote Glengarry Glen Ross, and that stuff really happens in sales environments. Coffees for closers.
That's a horrible, 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 toxic type environment. I sold cars for about 3 months. It's a horrible, horrible environment, and it strips you of your humanity. But so much of that ethos of not necessarily applying to other people, but like kicking my own ass. I mean, I've never shook it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I really hear you. Um, I think the way it trains people to be manipulative too. You know, uh, it's crazy. I talked to a friend.
Oh man, coffee is for closers, and so is this live stream. Now it's playing. We're gonna have to have him back as soon as he clicks back the link. He's joining us on a phone, so sometimes there's a few issues. Here he is. I was talking shit. I was like, coffee's for closers, and so is this live stream.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend who is crazy. He has escaped that environment of you know, the phone call center, and years ago though, over like a decade ago, he was in some extreme debt, and at the same time, he was working at a collection agency, and we were talking about, yeah, I want to write this as a script, right? You can't make this up, but it's like the manipulation that you're taught and how to manipulate people's desires and fears of poverty is really sad. And I think unfortunately other poor people are really good at that because that fear, and those hopes.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know exactly. I mean, and that's such a crazy but your friend's story, his position as both being buried in debt and also trying to get other people into debt in order to make a living. That's a real kind of microcosm for what so many of us are position so many of us are put in this country, that we have to we have to get our hands dirty if we don't want to die. It's a horrible irrational system. It's a terrible system, and it strips you of all that is good about you on a daily basis. I think that you really should write that script. You really should write that script. I wanted to move the conversation a little bit though, so because we're in this COVID virus, we're in this coronavirus period, and there's been a lot of racist attacks against the Asian American community. I know that's a very dear to your heart. So could you speak to some of that's going on right now?
Yeah, man, just disappointing, really disappointing, um, but not shocking. I think that Asian Americans, one unique experience, not unique, but a very distinct experience of racism for Asian people has been to be the scapegoat for diseases, sickness. There's a certain kind of othering that happens with Asian Americans. In a lot of ways, Asian Americans are privileged in American society as well, in comparison to, I think, to the experience of Latinx people or Black people. But yeah, this othering and always being something foreign, no matter what. You know, when someone asks you where you're from, they kind of mean like, you can say Ohio, but then they know really where are you from. Um, and I think that yeah, it's really easy to scapegoat the other. And early on, it was really sad to see my roommate. He works for a company called Food Beast. His name is Richard Ginto. He's the editor there. They make food content, and so he was covering early on like how people were, not going to Asian restaurants anymore because they're afraid. Pretty awful. Pretty awful. I'm also just really disappointed as well with the kind of racism that you're seeing in China, and people like, wait, we were just treated this way and now you're going to do the same exact thing to other people, to black folks, is crazy. Man, cooler, calmer heads have got to prevail right now, and that kind of thinking is so opposite what the world needs.
So back let's talk about what does the world need? What do we need to see right now? What do we need more of? What do we need more of, and what do we need less of?
Man, hmm. First thing that comes to my mind is money. You know, we live in the system we live in. Credit cycles are moving. I wish that the government would stop banks from collecting on loans right now. Just like I saw this angry New Yorker rant about this on social media. I don't know his name. He's like a comedian, but he made a good point. It's like banks post crazy profits every quarter. Like if someone has 12 months on a loan, make their loan 13 months or 14 months. Just do that immediately. Like people's credit is going to start suffering. They're going to start getting evicted. So placing protections like that, we need that right now. Government needs to act. We had to talk about this, you and I, recently, about how this is one way in which planned economies are better. Market economies like this cannot handle the burden and provide for people the way they need to. Interpersonally, though, I would say there's so much information, and that is something I keep coming back to, and it's frustrating. And I think our generation is really big on questioning anything that we view as the establishment. And so a lot of us have gone to YouTube, and we're getting information that's even worse and less reliable. And researching, check your sources. That's important right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of panic and a lot of panic, which sometimes leads us into just not a good idea. I mean, I think that people, when they can, they really should organize their life around science. When I say that, I mean like if you put your hand on the stove, you're going to burn your hand, right? So don't do that. That's basing your life around science, like trial and error. And I think right now there's a lot of ideas that just don't make sense. And I think that when you start going down that road of ideas that don't really make sense, it's a really short road to end up in this kind of Orientalism, scapegoating Asians, scapegoating like a Jewish conspiracy. It lends itself into this really, it starts lending itself into these really shadowy, sketchy territories that at first seem like a critique of society, and oh, things are messed up and it's bad, right? So it's not like you're not going with the powers that be, but then you're identifying whole groups of people as responsible for this. I think that so when someone starts talking about 5G, it's not long till after that they're going to talk about the China cough. That seems to be the case.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. It's a type of thinking that, as opposed to data and case studies, it's based on fear. You know, aren't you afraid of this one thing? Well, then this will make sense to you as well, and this will make sense to you as well. So yeah, it's really vital right now. Check your resources. Check your sources. Uh, where you're getting your info from. Don't be completely, driven by fear. Keep in touch with folks too. Like I really feel for people who live alone right now. call people, let them hear your voice, FaceTime people, spend time with family on FaceTime. We had a birthday party for my fiance's 6-year-old niece out in New York last week, you know, stuff like that. I try and call my grandma every day. My brother-in-law lives alone, so keep in touch with people as well. Panic robs people of their humanity on some exterminating angels type stuff, you know. Just uh, be a human, be a nice person, check up on folks.
So not everyone in our viewing audience has the Criterion Collection. Can you explain your exterminating angel?
Down and they were doing quarantine. I was like, this is it. We're about to see this happen. It's a movie about a bunch of people, rich people, who go to a dinner party and they cannot leave. And there's no reason they cannot leave. And you just see their humanity, or their what they think is their humanity, get stripped away, and they become more and more animalistic in this, you know, this mansion where they're at this dinner party. And we can't be like that, you know. I read another artist I really admire, Sandria Wrights. She said something to the effect of I am who I am no matter what. You know, like I choose my moral code basically, or how I treat people. And that's really hard. And our lizard brain doesn't want to do that. Like we want to buy all the toilet paper. But don't be like that. Like be a kind person. Don't let the panic and fear make you a jerk to people.
You're a man of many different hats and different interests. I forgot that you're a big film buff. We probably should have talked more about that. I also you play chess too, right? You're a big chess fanatic.
You know, but people can, you know, people can catch that smoke if they want. Um,
I recall constantly kicking your ass. I mean, maybe I'm just like, was that not you? Was that someone else? I remember I was the best chess player. I kicked him out because I didn't want his response. No. Back in the day in Pomona, we used to play chess, and I was I got one of those tragic situations that I'm better than all my friends at chess, but I'm also like not good enough to play competitively.
Yeah, I'm better than most of my friends, I think. And then there's just like there's a few who I've never beaten. I'm not that good, honestly. Um, I'm all right, I guess. That's not saying much, though. Most of my friends are not really good.
Yeah. So Romero plays chess, David Romero, and he's also loses to me. He's also a film buff, so I'm the wheels are turning in my mind right now.
Yeah, yeah. I love his reviews on Facebook of movies.
The wheels are turning in my mind right now. So I know he doesn't like it when I like try to like come up with ideas for his hobbies. Or he doesn't like when anyone tries to like take his little hobbies and turn them into something else. But I'm starting to think of like this kind of Criterion Collective, and we could like have
Collective, love it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I also think it would be cool to just see even people's like people who like don't really dig art film, seeing something like Sweet Movie or something crazy and like getting the reactions to it. Um, that'd be pretty funny. But yeah, I'm always down to talk about movies. I think my movie buff status is like about the same as my chess status. Like, you know, I watch some Criterion Collection movies, but my movie nerd friends, they are like, whoa, they know movies. But yeah, I'm totally down for that. Totally down to talk Criterion.
I'm at that level. I'm like better than the average bear, but then like when you start getting into like the upper echelon, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, there's some hardcore people.
Yeah, but those guys are nerds. They don't know anybody. I have 5,000 Facebook friends.
Right, exactly. The biggest movie nerd I know is not on Facebook. Has very few friends.
Yeah, who wants to talk to such people? I mean, no. All right, so this is definitely something we're gonna do. We're gonna.
Do it.
I don't know if we get Romero.
Criterion Collective.
The criteria, but see, those movie nerds would never think of calling it the Criterion Collective because it'd be too simple, it'd be too obvious. It'd be too brilliant. What it would be?
Yeah,
You need a
exactly.
poet to think something like that. Criterion Collective. You'll probably get sued by Criterion, but that'll be great because a lot of publicity getting sued for no fucking reason. So,
Right.
all right. I'll see you again, and next time as part of the Criterion Collective.
Let's do it.
And last plugs for mass liberation.
Yes. Let me make sure I get the handles and websites correct here. But real quick, masslibproject.org. I have not been on Facebook. I don't know if there's a comment section where I can post these two, but it's mass, MASS, lib, LIB, project.org. And then the social media handles, follow us on Facebook at, Instagram at Mass Liberation, Thanks, man.
Thank you, Devin. Really appreciate it. Talking soon.